Around 10,000 people across several villages in Iran are without water after overnight US attacks. That's according to the head of Iran's national water company. Iran says US strikes hit desalination pumps in the city of Jask in southern Hormozgan province. The attacks also damaged bridges in the region. US Central Command says its seventh night of operations targeted surveillance sites, underground weapons storage facilities and maritime capabilities. Iranian state media say at least 3 people have been killed in the southern province of Hormozgan. Explosions were heard in the cities of Sirak, Bushehr and Bandar Abbas. The critical oil export hub of Qeshm Island was also attacked. Further inland, explosions were reported in the central city of Yazd. The city of La was also targeted. Iran, in turn, has launched attacks across the Gulf region. A fire broke out at a power and desalination plant in Kuwait after an Iranian strike. Kuwait's Ministry of Electricity and Water says several power generation units have been shut down. Kuwait has also closed its airspace as its military responds to Iranian missiles and drones. Jordan's armed forces say they've shot down 10 Iranian missiles. No casualties or damage have been reported. And Bahrain's Interior Ministry says sirens have been sounded for a second time Saturday. Iran says it's targeted military aircraft at a US base. Iran's Revolutionary Guard is warning Gulf countries they could face more strikes if their territory is used for attacks against Iran. As both sides carry out strikes, Iran's Revolutionary Guard says 2 oil tankers exploded while passing through a minefield in the Strait of Hormuz. US CENTCOM says those reports are false. It comes as the military advisor to Iran's supreme leader has warned the conflict could escalate even further. Laura Khan is in Doha, but first let's go to Resul Serdar, who joins us from Tehran. Resul, where are we at then after another night of US attacks?
Well, the scope of the conflict is broadening. So for the first time, we've seen that Americans are hitting the central Iran. And so now the city of Yazd, the province of Yazd, and also the city of Fars, Lar in Fars province, they have been hit. These are the inland of Iran. And we know that there are some of the IRGC's missile bases over these provinces. We do not know whether the Americans were hitting these missile bases or not, but in any way, so this is the first time we've seen that much of the American attacks in the heart of Iran. And of course, the Americans continued to target the civilian infrastructure. For the second day, 2 more bridges and 1 tunnel in the province of Hormozgan that is connecting Bandar Abbas to the rest of the country. That's quite important because Bandar Abbas is the largest port of Iran, particularly when it comes to the import. So hitting the tunnels and the railways, roads and the bridges here is simply cutting off the most important port of the country with the rest of Iran. And then Iranians in response are saying they have stopped 8 vessels. 4 of them were directly stopped and returned. 2 of them were hit by the sea mines and 2 directly targeted by IRGC. So also there are reports of attacks on the Kurdish areas in northern Iraq and also in Saudi Arabia, but so far IRGC did not claim the responsibility for that. However, they are saying that they are targeting the military assets, US military assets in Jordan, Kuwait and Bahrain. What Iranian officials here are saying is that the era of the policy of restraint is over, and in the coming days they are going to extend the scope of their retaliations.
Okay, Resul, you mentioned also the civilian infrastructure that was hit in those US attacks. Given the targets the US is striking, talk us through the impact then that has on the civilians who live in these areas.
Well, now that the civilian infrastructure, the critical infrastructure of the country is being targeted systemically by Americans, so that is having a tremendous impact on the daily life of the people, particularly in the southern Iran. So far, 3 times there have been attacks on the water desalination centers, and now in Jask Island in 20 villages, so there is no water. 10,000 people are living in that area, so in the Hormozgan province. And then also we have seen that there are the power outages in Iran Shahr, which is hosting an important civilian airport that was hit yesterday, and also some temporary sporadic power outages were reported from the island of Kish. So far, there have been 8 bridges, at least confirmed ones, that were hit by Americans and put out of the service, and then tunnels, so the railways, the civilian airports. Naturally, all of that is affecting the mobility, it's restricting the mobility of the people, the logistics, the flow of the goods, even essentials tremendously. So, and one of the other impact of these attacks on the civilian life is particularly on the educational sector here. So in 4 provinces in the southern part of the country, in Bushehr, Sistan, Balochistan, Hormuzgan and Khuzestan, this is the 4th day that the Minister of Education, they saying that the 12th grade high school students' exams are postponed once again. But more importantly, people that we are talking over the phone that are living in the southern part of the country, they say they're under constant fear of being bombed.
Resul Serdar joining us live from Tehran. Thank you. Let's go now to Laura Khan, who joins us from Doha. Laura, Kuwait on the receiving end, again, of Iran's attacks. What's been the impact there?
Well, absolutely. I mean, first of all, we saw this civilian infrastructure being hit, the water desalination and electricity plant that happened yesterday. And we know that numerous generators were essentially on fire. They were put out, and technical teams have been assessing that damage. But we also know that there have been multiple waves of attacks throughout the morning since the early morning. And even though the Kuwaiti army are saying they are dealing with these attacks, we've also had the Iranian Revolutionary Guard saying that they have hit number US military targets there, including a refueling fleet along one of the piers and a number of former US bases, saying they've knocked out some telecommunications there. This has not yet been confirmed by Kuwaiti authorities, but we know that attacks have been continuing there alongside Jordan as well. We've had them intercepting around 10 missiles in the morning, and also Bahrain has been sounding sirens throughout the morning. Now that there has been a small amount of diplomatic movement, shall I say. Egypt's foreign minister has been talking to Steve Witkoff. He's essentially the special envoy to the Middle East. Now, Egypt's foreign minister Badr Abdel Ati has reaffirmed Egypt's support for all efforts aimed at resolving the current crisis. This is in a statement, and stressed the importance of adhering to the memorandum of understanding that was signed between the US and Iran back in June, and that was to end the conflict. So they said that they are throwing support behind diplomacy, as have all these Gulf nations, as this conflict continues to spill into the Gulf, not only affecting US assets, but also now civilian infrastructure.
Yeah, Laura, you can understand their concerns, given the conflict, as you say, shows no sign of slowing down. So what are other government officials across the Gulf telling their citizens?
They're really taking a multi-pronged approach. The first is that they are reassuring their citizens that they are attempting to get this under control, that they're using these defence systems that are multi-layered architecture for the ground and air defence, using specific missiles against the ongoing threat of drones and missiles coming from Iran. So they are continuously sending out this reassurance and calling on people to only listen to relevant authorities and not misinformation. The second thing is they are all across the Gulf heavily condemning Iran for continuing to retaliate against the 7th consecutive night of US strikes against them into the Gulf, and they say they maintain their right under Article 51 of the UN Convention, that's essentially using international law to defend themselves and protect their sovereignty. But the one thing we heard from Egypt today, but also across the Gulf nations, including here in Qatar, is diplomatic efforts. The only way of getting through this, the only way of finding a resolve to off-ramp from all of this is through diplomacy, diplomatic means. So they are really pushing to get everyone back to the table for talks now.
All right, Laura Khan joining us from Doha. Thank you.